Hi.
Hello. How are you?
Great to see you.
Good to see you. I hear this is a special coffee shop.
Yeah, this is just where so much stuff happened, especially for YC over really 10 years.
YC, short for Y Combinator, is one of the most storied startup accelerators in Silicon Valley, where Airbnb, Coinbase, and Reddit all got their start. It's like an elite club for chosen founders to get access to top-shelf mentors and, if they're lucky, raise top dollars. Gary Tan is the new leader of Y Combinator, succeeding a short line of big names including Sam Altman and Paul Graham, which makes Tan now perhaps the ultimate startup kingmaker.
Ever done a deal here or anything like that?
You know, like YC is interesting because the deal is pretty straightforward.
Right.
We just meet them for 10 minutes and then decide
That's
yes or
it?
no. Yeah, that's right. So that's
10 minutes and then yes or no?
Yeah, that's right.
Wow. How do you know in 10 minutes?
Well, I think you can look at what the founders are capable of, their skills. I think we're up to 40,000 applications.
Ever?
Every year.
Every year?
Yeah,
And you pick like a few hundred.
that's right. It's the lowest
Pretty selective.
acceptance rate
Right.
of, more selective than, pretty much any selective school in the world. I feel like a lot of this stuff all started here. Mm-hmm. Back in really 2005, this idea that you could give very small amounts of money to just a few teams and have those teams go on to become sort of the Reddits and the Airbnbs of the world.
All right. Thank
Here
you.
we go. We got a chai and a latte.
Oh, thank
Thank you
you.
very much. It's warm.
Thanks. Yeah.
Let's go.
This is where people meet their first investors. This is where they meet their co-founder for the first time. Sometimes this is a really
love
important
that.
part of Silicon Valley.
And you actually were in YC yourself.
Oh yeah, I lived 5 blocks down that way, and YC is about 5 blocks down this way.
And when were you accepted to YC?
2008.
2008. So just at the start of the financial crisis.
Yeah, for sure. We raised our angel round for Preposterous the day Lehman died, and nobody else in our batch managed to raise any money.
And you're a Bay Area guy, right?
That's right.
You were born and raised here.
Yeah, I grew up right here in Fremont, right across the bay. And tech gave me everything I have, honestly. Child of Chinese immigrants. We were sometimes food insecure, but I just remember tech was here. And we grew up in the shadow of all this greatness, all this technology being built from nothing. I knew that I wanted to learn to code, and I cold called the internet section until I got a job. And we were living in 1 or 2 bedroom apartments.
Right.
And for my parents to sometimes struggle with English, the cultural barrier. My dad was foreman in a machine shop. My mom was a nurse assistant at a convalescent home. For dinner, we would sort of have the expired bread that someone would drop off to sort of help out my mom, who was, working sometimes 2 shifts just to keep the family going. And so I think that's one of the really important things to me, that I realized tech is this thing that can bring people out of whatever situation they're in and often into prosperity, and that's what I want for everyone.
You were sort of like an engineer designer by background. How does that inform your perspective?
This is why YC really attracted me in 2008, was that here was the one place that wasn't about the flash. It wasn't about, whether you had an MBA or you went to some school or whatever. It was just purely, hey, can you build something great?
You have this picture. It's 2008, I believe. You're sitting
yeah.
on the ground and you can see Paul Graham in the background and Mark Zuckerberg. What's going on in that moment?
At that point, I knew I wanted to start a company. And YC threw this event that was a free event called Startup School. And it was all sort of like the luminaries. I believe that year Jeff Bezos came. And he actually launched AWS at that startup school in 2008 at the auditorium
Wow.
at Stanford. I was sitting on the ground. Photography was one of my loves. And I was actually thinking about either starting a company or becoming a hip-hop editorial photographer.
Very different proposition.
Yeah.
You went on to become a partner at YC yourself. How did you make the transition from entrepreneur to investor?
We were doing dead simple blogs by email, Preposterous.
And then didn't you sell that to Twitter?
Much later, actually. I mean, Instagram came out, and that flatlined our growth. And this is one of the interesting things about being an investor. I think we were very much in the running to be sort of one of the major social networks. But That was because there were no really great iPhone apps yet for uploading photos until Instagram. And now I realize it's actually the role of the investor. We need to be helping them understand the historical context, like what is actually happening in the market, and what are the brass rings that are going to be enduring, meaningful businesses that could be worth billions of dollars.
So obviously you worked at YC for a bit. You went on to start your own fund.
Yep.
Initialized.
Absolutely.
You made some pretty smart bets early
thanks.
on. You invested in Coinbase, for example. What did you learn from that experience that gave you sort of the bona fides to be an investor?
This is actually a business that requires you to see enough. And YC was just such a concentrated form of all of tech happening, and it remains that I think you just end up learning way more about what's doable, what's possible.
So coming back to YC as CEO, is that like a dream job?
Yeah, I mean, the ability to help people basically achieve their dreams, that's what YC did for me. And I'm, a steward here. I'm trying to figure out what can we do to help more innovation happen in the world.
Ooh. I love the wall of photos.
Oh, yeah. So this was very, very early days.
Alexis Ohanian,
Yeah.
Steve.
There's Sam Altman on the left.
Oh, there's Sam.
Yep, that's Emmett Shear of Twitch,
Oh my gosh.
Justin Kahn, Steve Huffman, and Alexis of Reddit.
There's a lot of lore in this one photo.
That's right.
My gosh, everyone looks like babies.
Yeah.
I mean, they really are though, too. Like just out of college, like.
And that's the thing to emphasize here is there's sort of the next Brian Chesky out there, maybe watching this right now.
I walked right by this.
Oh, yeah.
What do we have here?
Well, this is sort of the experience of every startup, right? You launch, and then things sort of fall out, and then you have a crash.
Trough
and then,
of sorrow.
Yep.
Everything's horrible.
Yep. Obviously, you always hear about this story, but
Yeah.
we're here to sort of try to lift people up right at that moment.
Right at the crash of ineptitude.
Yeah, that's right. Ups and downs are always a part of it. This is actually the photo
That's
from
you.
my YC interview, actually. This is the Stripe office right in Palo Alto. I think that's Greg Brockman of OpenAI right there. Yeah, so this is from 2009. That's me over here. And Sam's right there.
Goodness.
James Lindenbaum from Heroku.
So this
Scrib,
looks like the
Justin.
Last Supper.
Yeah.
Airbnb, Stripe, Instacart, Dropbox, Coinbase, Cruise.
So many.
Who am I forgetting?
Oh gosh, there's so many, right? The most crazy thing to me is that the next ones are still coming.
Mm-hmm.
This is a community that is refreshing itself with the next billion-dollar startups, literally right now.
So I have to call you out about something here.
Sure, of course.
There are a lot of dudes in these pictures.
Absolutely.
Where are all the women?
Yeah, I mean, that's something that we're gonna continue to work on. And
I mean, there's not a single woman in this picture.
yep, 2009 was a time that it was easily a problem, and that's something that we're continuing to work on.
Is there something about the orange? This room is very orange.
It's very orange. I think it was the hex code for the color was FF6600.
Okay.
So it was a very simple color that you could write in code, and it turned out to be a very bright one.
We read online that orange also can symbolize optimism and energy, so I thought maybe that was the reason. But of
That's-
course, it's probably more wonky than that.
And the name Y Combinator is actually an algorithm that writes other algorithms. So YC was meant to be a startup that helps start other startups.
Oh, I never knew that. So many companies have come through these doors. Talk to me a little bit about the process. For those who don't understand, what exactly does a startup accelerator do?
Well, YC works kind of as a 10, 12-week program. Anyone can apply online. All they have to do is, ideally have an idea and have a demo sometimes. And what we do is we try to figure out who are the smartest, best people who are capable. What are the things that they're trying to do, and are those things viable? And we whittle it down to about 250 to give half a $1,000,000 to.
Right.
Which is great, because when I first started, I think YC only gave me $12,000.
What does the newest class of founders look like? And what problems are they trying to solve?
A good deal of them are focused on AI, bringing in large language models. That's a really exciting time for just software, period.
Demo day is sort of like a rite of passage.
Oh, definitely.
Right? What happens on demo day?
It's 1,000 investors, VCs, angel investors, people who have been there, and they often raise millions of dollars. And so that's a really powerful moment because that big bump at the top of that graph that we saw, that's a moment of euphoria, and then, hey guys, it's back to work. Like, we're going to be in that trough of sorrow for a while, but we're going to make it to the promised land.
What do you say to the folks who are out there thinking, how do I get in?
Well, the big thing is, I think we really like people who are earnest. What we really care about is, are you solving a real problem? Can you show us the quality of your work? Can you access a market that nobody else can actually access?
So in 10 minutes, you decide whether to give someone a golden ticket.
That's right.
Are you making all the right decisions?
Well, we hope so, and that's why Demo Day exists. Those 1,000 investors come back year after year after year because you'll never find a congregation of hundreds of startups in which a dozen of them will probably go on to be worth $1 billion or more. The hard part is it's not really about what happens in that 10 minutes. It's about the 10,000 hours that goes in beforehand. The best CEOs in the world are sort of jack of all trades, but master of one or two. And that isn't something that is in that 10 minutes or in those 12 questions. That's something in someone's life.
Are you really looking for people from around the world, or do people who are here have an advantage?
Lots of people come here just for the batch. They raise money, they build their community, and then they go back and become the best company in Mumbai, the best company in London. So, I think that this is a story that is San Francisco Bay Area based, but also one that radiates out into the entire world.
We talked about the pictures on the wall, and you said, hey, you got me. We don't have enough women. We haven't had enough women for a couple of decades now. What are you seeing in the numbers now?
I think representation matters a lot at the end of the day. The types of problems that people solve kind of come out of their own stories. It is important to us. It's important to me. At YC, we have more than 850 women founders who have gone through the program. And you're right, that's not enough.
What are you doing to change the ratio?
I think I look at the process, and we want the process to be something that is as open and inclusive as possible. There's a lot to be done, and we're not done.
We're seeing tens of thousands of people getting laid off from tech companies. How does this play out?
I think a lot of large companies started treating their employee base almost as a place to park resources and almost as a competitive moat versus the other giants. And when I think about the amount of talent that was sort of locked up in cushy jobs that could have been actually out there in the market making new technology, pushing things forward, I'm hoping a lot of them actually come over to startups and they realize, oh, this is what it's like to run fast again.
What's your advice for these workers who are getting laid off? It does sound a little trite to just say, it's time to build.
Right, it sure does. I think some of it is take stock, right? Getting much more connected to the problems out there, I think will lead to just a lot more direct access to, building equity, building businesses that really matter.
Well, speaking of equity, for years, tech workers have been paid in stock, and that was sort of, the ticket. You're taking a risk on this company. It could be worth zero, or it could, be worth millions,
Absolutely.
Right? We're seeing kind of the dark side of RSUs or getting paid in stock now. Do you think that's still the way it should work in Silicon Valley?
That's some of the magic of startups. I think this is about labor being able to access actual capital. And this is one of the most direct and most awesome versions of it. Some of the bad behavior we saw from startup founders was trying to reach for that $1 billion valuation because they wanted the headline out there saying that they're a unicorn now.